In this video, I'm going to show you how you can set up a metric dimension style, still following the ASME Y14.5 standards. So the first thing we're going to do is open up the Dimension Style Manager, and there's lots of ways to get to that Dimension Style Manager. There's no right or wrong way. I'll show you a few different options. I'm on the Home ribbon, and I can go to the Annotation panel. If I click on the word Annotation or that down arrow, I get this option here. The second button down is your dimension style. If I click on the Annotate ribbon, the Dimensions panel, that tiny little arrow right here, pulls up your Dimension Style Manager. There's also some pull down ways that you can get to it. You can go to Format, Dimension Style. You can also go to Dimension Style. Like I said, there's so many ways to get to any one command in AutoCAD. There's no right way or wrong way. It's however you feel comfortable. If you're using toolbars, there's even a button on a toolbar. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new dimension style. So I'm going to click on the word New, and I'm going to call this ASME Y14.5. Instead of starting with the metric that's in there, we're going to start with standard, and we will say continue. Now I'm going to go over here to the lines tab, and I'm just going to work my way down. So we are going to extend beyond dimension lines a distance of 3. So right in here, we'll change that to 3. Now that's a really big number, but remember we're talking about 3 millimeters here. This is the metric drawing that we're working on. So these are going to be really big numbers. So 3, 1.5 is my offset from origin. If I come over to my Symbols and Arrows tab, we're going to set our arrow size to 3. And notice as I start doing this picture over here, the little thumbnail of showing the changes that I'm making, it's starting to get really crazy. Set my center marks to line and my center mark size to 2. Look at this, my arrows just got huge in this picture. And that's because it's just so out of proportion with how tiny my text is. So as we start going through here, this picture is going to look more and more normal. All right, that's all we need to do in here. We're going to click on the Text tab. We're going to make sure that it's set to standard, but we do need to make sure in Chapter 4 we were told to set the standard text style to use the Arial font. So just to make sure we did that in Chapter 4, I'm going to click on this little ... next to the standard dimension style, or text style, and we're going to look, make sure it's set to Arial. If it's not, you can set it to Arial here. If it is, you can just say cancel. So that looks good. We're going to change our text height to be 3. Remember, our text height and our arrowheads always match. When I click out of that 3 into something else, let's do the offset from dimension line. Look, oh, that picture got better looking. It was just my arrows and my text, everything was out of proportion, so it's looking better now. We're going to set offset from our dimension line, distance of 3. We're going to skip over fit. We're going to leave it at all of the kind of default settings here. We're not asked to change anything here. And we're going to change our precision to be 1 decimal place, so 0.0. And for 0 suppression, we're going to suppress the trailing 0. This is the opposite of how we do it in imperial or decimal. With imperial, we suppress the leading 0. We don't want it to say 0.50. We would suppress leading and we would leave trailing. In metric, you suppress trailing, so if it's a whole number, it'll just be like a dimension of 5, not 5.0, and we would leave leading on. So we're going to suppress trailing, and that's it. We'll say OK. So I've got this dimension style created. Now I'm going to use this dimension style for all of my dimensions and anything with a small radius, but I'm going to go ahead and create another one. I'll say New. And I'll start with that ASME Y14.5. I'll delete out the word copy of, come over here, and I'm going to call this one large radii. I'll say continue. Everything's going to stay exactly the same except the fit tab. Now all I have to do under fit is check a couple of boxes. I'm going to check the word text instead of either text or arrows. And I will check these 2 fine-tuning options. And that's all I have to do. Everything else is perfectly the same. So I'll say OK. So now I have a large radii, and I've got the regular Y14.5, which is what we'll use for the small radius. So when I close, I want to show you what the difference does. So I'm going to do two different, I'll just do a radius. It could be a radius or a diameter. But you see how I have large radii set current now, and it's taking that arrow from the center and it's pulling it all the way out, and then I've got my radius here. So the arrow is coming from the center out. If I select that radius and change it to be just the regular Y14.5, I've got the arrow pointing to the outside of it. It's not coming in from the center. So we would have the arrow pointing from the outside on a small radius. For a large radius, let's do that radius command again. For a large radius, we would have it pointing from the inside out. So let's just playing around here, but just so you can see the difference. We've got one arrow coming from the inside out for a large radius and an arrow pointing to the outside of the circle for a small radius. So that's why we've set up those two different dimension styles, and you can quickly and easily change between the two and set it to the other one if you accidentally have it on the wrong one. So that's it. You've just set up your metric ASME Y14.5 dimension style.